Cuckoo is a new movie by Tillman Singer, and this is his sophomore feature following 2018's Lose, which I think I saw. But for the longest time, this movie has been associated with this still right here. This is the only material that we had from this movie, and it hit this up stylistically. There will be audiences who think this movie was trying to be a B movie or trying to be one of those elevated horror movies. The bulk of a lot of these new horror releases are really trying to hit that sweet spot in the middle. I think movies like In a Violent Nature were able to pull that off, where ones like Sting kind of felt like more on the B movie side. You know, there are no shortage of horror movies that are getting released this year, and when finding that sweet spot between elevated and artistic or traditional, I'd like to say that Cuckoo succeeds on this front. This is a very contemporary movie. It feels 2024 through and through. It has a color-filled aesthetic from the 35mm photography we have here. Also, the architecture feels modern, and the house almost reminded me of like the house from Parasite. There's such a peculiar look to everything here, and it looks so new. And this is also a vehicle for Hunter Schafer, which besides Kinds of Kindness, I believe I've really only seen her act on Euphoria, which, I mean, full disclaimer, I think that show is fantastic. It's really good, and she's great on the show too. But I was unsure how she would stack amongst her contemporaries, ones like Kaylee Spaney or Sydney Sweeney, two actors I could have seen on this movie. But, you know, I'm happy to say that Hunter sticks out on her own. There's just something about her. She really does give a presence. She looks a lot like a video game character, and I know people want her to be Zelda. I think the idea of a Legend of Zelda movie is horrible. Not to get too off topic, but we have a video game movie out this weekend, and it looks god-awful. But that being said, if there was ever a Final Fantasy casting, Hunter Schafer would definitely have to be involved. I do feel like she is a little one note, though. I mean, we've really only seen her play angsty teenagers. Once again, she is one here named Gretchen. She has just moved to the German Alps with her father and his newer wife and their daughter. They're going to be living as a family, as the dad is going to design another resort for this section, and Dan Stevens is his boss, who is so good in this movie. But his interactions with Gretchen are strange from the beginning, and Gretchen's kind of picking up on all of this as she's beginning to learn that there is like a plot at hand that involves her entire family. This is a pretty straightforward horror movie with some interesting scares and visuals. There is this frantic shaky cam that happens whenever the entity on this movie is getting nearby. It kind of reminded me of like David Lynch. And also, with this movie being like teenage in a way, I thought of Julia Ducournau with her movie Raw specifically. And the German Alps, this being a kind of resort away from everything, it reminded me a little bit of The Shining. So there's a ton of influences on the filmmaker's sleeve on this movie, but I think that everything is well done. There are a lot of great sequences. A car crash that happens on this movie, it looks incredible. The camera just swirls like a roller coaster, and the blood on this movie too, it looks so good. Everything looks brutal, and there is this disorienting repetition. It is weird as an audience to revisit like 2 seconds of footage repeat itself right after it happens. And I actually liked what this movie turned into as well. It really boils down to a story about siblings and coming to terms with the cards that you have in hand. Final 20 minutes of this movie was tension heavy and unexpected often enough. I am happy to say this is a new horror movie that takes some left turns. It doesn't quite shoot for the stars like how Longlegs did a couple weeks ago. I think this movie looks, sounds, and runs quite well. I would give this a 7.8. Cuckoo is released by Neon, and it is in theaters now. Thank you for watching.